Hello, welcome to Dancing at the Louvre discussion. My name is Mrs. Morin, and I am here with
Mrs. Wyatt.
Let's go ahead and let's talk about what we're looking here. This is Dancing at the Louvre, is the title. The artist is Faith Ringgold, and the historical period is contemporary. Now, what we're looking at here is actually acrylic on canvas, tie-dyed, pieced fabric border, and it's essentially a quilt,
Yes.
right? And the intended purpose. So, Ringgold was actually drawing on her own struggle for recognition in an art world dominated by European traditions and male artists. And so she's rewriting the past by weaving uh, together historical stories of modern art, putting in African American culture, and she's sort of writing her own personal biography. She's basically in this piece challenging us to consider expectations of gender and race, as well as traditional expectations and values of what art might be. So she's trying to um, put art in a light that considers more than just, a white European man.
Yes.
And the patron and intended audience, that would be women and Black Americans are the
Correct.
audience here, in this one especially. And with that, I'll go ahead and move on to Ms. White for the questions.
So, question number one is, what is story quilting? So, story quilting is actually having a quilt that tells a story. And so, this one that we're looking at right here is Who's Afraid of Aunt Jemima? And then we have Dancing at the Louvre. Do we have any others on this one? Do we have the.
No, we don't have the other.
She has tons of really cool quilts that tell story. But basically, what she likes to do is create a central image using acrylic paints. And then she adds the border around, which this one happens to be tie dye. And then a lot of times she'll include a lot of handwritten text within her work. So then she finishes everything off with a traditional quilting method.
Mhm.
Number two is, why is quilting seen as an important art form? Well, the truth of the matter is, it hasn't always been. It was always considered women's work. And within that tradition of quilting, it was really important that these women were getting together and maintaining female relationships because they would have quilting parties. And not only would the quilting parties result in these women all of one generation getting together and having relationships, but also they would bring in their daughters and their granddaughters, and they would all become part of this tradition also, and it would create community.
Mm-hmm.
So, what she's looking at beyond this is the fact that women's work should be held in the same esteem that men's work is. And so, fiber arts and quilting are now being looked at in a totally different way because of people like Ringgold,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're now considered an art form.
A fine art form.
Yes, yes, and that art goes beyond just a painting on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, number three is, what is the story behind the quilt Dancing at the Louvre? And it is a series of quilts, and it tells a fictional story of William Simone, a young Black woman who moves to Paris in the early 20th century. So I think there's a quote in here that talks about them being at the Louvre. I'm not sure where that is. There we go. Marcy, go back up to the top. Marcy and her three little girls took me dancing at the Louvre. I thought I was taking them to see the Mona Lisa. You've never seen anything like this. Well, the French hadn't either. Never mind Leonardo da Vinci and Mona Lisa. Marcia and her three girls were the show. And that is part of Dancing at the Louvre.
That's wonderful. It definitely it talks a little bit too about how the main character, Willa Marie Simone, is actually, she goes to to Paris and meets people like
Yes.
Picasso and I can't remember the other figures that she said she met, but she, we hear these stories of
Hmm.
these artists during the early 20th century talking to each other and sharing ideas, and it's really something that it's interesting to hear herself, being in that situation, putting her figures in that situation. And nowadays, hopefully, there's more situations like this, and
Yes.
we're getting more cultural opportunities with how things have been globalized, which is wonderful.
Yes. I agree.
um, so, if you don't have anything else to add,
Nope. We're done.
all right. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed.